Thank you for coming, Senator. My name is Thomas Smith. I'm a freshman finance major in the School of Business in New Orleans. Changing from the more social civil rights talk, you famously filibustered the confirmation of the CIA chief in the Obama administration based on the Obama administration's lack of transparency in counterterrorism, specifically the drone program. My question starts with your fellow Senator John Chester from Montana gave testimony on the floor of the Senate against a recently anonymously added bill with a provision that gives legal cover to agribusiness, and a provision which, quoting the Senator Chester, says the USDA has the right to ignore any judicial rulings on GMO crops. Those in your ideological party, the Tea Party, have spoken out vehemently against it. And did you have any knowledge of the provision on the floor and the floor testimony of John Chester from Montana? And if you did, why did it not deserve the filibuster the CIA confirmation did, or your proposed filibuster of any gun legislation?
Okay. Help me understand a little bit again, just in your own words again. This was about GMO, the genetically modified corn and things like that.
It's been commonly called the Monsanto Protection Act.
Okay. But explain to me again exactly what, we had a lot of votes recently, and I'm not sure I know the details real well of this.
Okay, well, Senator John Chester, Democrat from Montana, was on the Senate floor, and he pointed out a provision in a recent appropriations bill, I believe it was, having to do a lot with agriculture, and in it there was a provision that basically, in his words, tells the USDA to ignore any judicial rulings, or possible judicial rulings, on GMO foods, which in a sense can give legal cover, legal immunity to agribusiness. Like,
yeah, I can't remember if we actually had a vote on this or not. Did it pass by voice vote?
Yeah, yes, it was passed in time by President Obama.
By voice vote. I think that I'm against giving immunity to big corporations in general. Okay, I think, for example, and this is a different subject but maybe related, is that when we give immunity, like for Google, to turn over your records of what you search on your computer, I think that's a mistake, because then they're going to violate your contract. The same with Monsanto or any company. If there's an obligation to deliver food that is not harmful to you, and they deliver something that a court says is harmful, then I think we should go to the courts, and that the government shouldn't override that. The specific vote I'll have to look into, because I really don't remember the details. That's the best I can do for an answer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Patterson. I'm a sophomore economics major, political science minor from Chicago. And my question is, recently the state of Maryland repealed youth the death penalty. A lot of organizations, including the NAACP, which I'm a part of, have been working to get capital punishment repealed nationwide, because it is applied unfairly to racial minorities. So I wanted to get your view of the death penalty and the purpose it serves in our criminal justice system today, if any.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on the death penalty. I think of it sometimes in a personal way, that if someone came into my house and killed my wife, if I were there at the time, I'd have no problem pulling the trigger to kill him to defend my wife. Also, a week or two later, I just don't know if I'm a forgiving enough person. I'd be probably for executing. I mean, just that's my emotion coming out. But I also realize that the court system's made mistakes, and even while I'm a big, huge fan of the court system, of having a trial by jury and having a judge and having all these things, still there are evidence, and some of it comes from Illinois on rape, where some rape cases involving murder also, it was proven time after time that they were making mistakes, that the courts were making mistakes. So I do have some reservations, and I'm not sure I know exactly what the answer is. I do think that most penalties for crime should be done at the state level, not the federal level. So I'm not a big fan of federal death sentences for anything other than maybe treason.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Senator. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Arian. I'm a professor here in the School of Business. I thank you for coming despite the fact that you have spoken out against the Civil Rights Act, against the Voting Rights Act. And you've done it as a champion of individual liberties and states' rights. And so I wonder, aside from the moral reasons not to discriminate, of which there are many, when is it okay legally to discriminate, according to you?
Well, I think it's a mischaracterization of my position, mischaracterization. I've never been against the Civil Rights Act, ever. And I still continue to be for the Civil Rights Act as well as enforcement of the 14th Amendment.
you got.
Well, there was a long one interview that had a long extended conversation about the ramifications beyond race. And I have been concerned about the ramifications of certain portions of the Civil Rights Act beyond race, as they are now being applied to smoking, menus, listing calories and things on menus, and guns. And so I do question some of the ramifications and the extensions, but I've never questioned the Civil Rights Act and never come out in opposition to the Civil Rights Act, nor have I ever introduced anything to alter the Civil Rights Act. So your characterization is incorrect.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Jabari Zakia. I'm a native Washingtonian living in the colonial city of Banneker City. And to correct you, DC residents pay more in federal taxes than they get back from the federal government. But my question is this. The 14th Amendment was passed to protect those enslaved Africans coming out of slavery and not corporations. Do you believe that corporations are people that have the same protections as natural citizens without any of the negativities of natural citizens? And my second question is that the Constitution requires that Congress declare war. The power to declare war is in the Congress' hand. Bill Clinton was impeached by the Republican House because he allegedly lied about an affair. Based on that premise, should George Bush be considered a war criminal for lying to getting the United States into the war with Iraq? And in the same provision, should Barack Obama be impeached for getting into Libya without an act of Congress?
Thank you.
How about yes, no, yes, no? No, seriously, I'll try to answer some of the questions. On corporations, whether they should be people, they're obviously not the same as people. So you don't get a trial by jury, and you don't have habeas corpus and necessarily the same due process as an individual gets. And I think sometimes corporations, particularly big corporations, use government to get special privileges, and I'm against that. I'm against special tax deductions for corporations. I'm also against anything that takes your money and props up or gives special privilege to corporations. However, on the other side, corporations do have a very important function in our society. So let's say when you graduate and you get out, you start a plumbing business, and you're doing pretty well, but then someone sues you. One of your pipes break, and it was an accident, maybe your supplier wasn't good, but now all of your profit, all of your assets are taken by the courts. Should they be able to also get your house and anything else you save for, or should the corporation protect you a little bit through bankruptcy? So bankruptcy is debated all the time on whether it should go towards creditors or towards the debtor. And I think there has to be some balance and there has to be some protection, because it does help you. You'll meet people in your life who've been bankrupt 3 times and then go on to hit it big. And if we ruin them, we don't put people in prison for it anymore, but if we ruined them and said, oh, we're going to take your house and everything else, I also see it from my perspective. I'm a physician. I try to do my best all the time, but I'm human. Has anybody ever had an infection that I operated on? But should they be able to come and take my house and things that I've worked for 20 or 30 years? I have a corporation that somewhat secludes me from people coming and taking their house. So I think about that on corporations. It's not all big, huge corporations. Sometimes it's mom and pops or individual businesses like your parents might have. On declaration of war, absolutely. I'm opposed to Republican or Democrat presidents taking us to war without a declaration.
Yeah, we get only take.
Just the 2 at the microphones. We'll do that.
Good afternoon, Senator Paul. My name is Charles Wilson. I'm a graduate student here at Howard University in the physics department. My question is in reference to something you said earlier in your speech, namely that you are for the markets being free. I actually am someone who agrees that markets should be free, but I wonder to what degree. For example, the idea of there being no longer an EPA or USDA in order to regulate things that are helpful or non-helpful for citizens to me is a problem. Also, the idea that, for example, the Monsanto's Protection Act can be sort of tucked into various types of legislation or other types of cronyism, capitalism, is upsetting to me. And so my question is, to what degree is the Republican Party, and you in particular, dedicated to making sure that free markets are in fact free?
I think it's a good question, and it's also something where I think we've done a poor job. I would say Republicans have done a poor job promoting that we believe in protecting free markets. And I think we can do a better job. I, for one, believe that if you believe in strict property rights and no one should pollute their neighbor's property, then you should get absolute injunctions. You can't pollute them just a little bit. You know, you just can't pollute your neighbor's property. So the Clean Water Act, I think, is and has an appropriate purpose or goal. The Clean Water Act says you can't discharge pollutants into the navigable streams of America. What does that mean to me? Chemical company is not allowed and should not be allowed to dump chemicals in the Ohio River. Okay? Absolutely. But you know what it's come to believe over time, so I'm not opposing having rules. What the Clean Water Act has become, though, is we now say that dirt is a pollutant, and we say that your backyard is a navigable stream. We've just gone too far. The Sackett family, this went to the Supreme Court last year, bought a $25,000 lot near a lake, not on a lake, no rivers, no streams, no ponds. It's a 1/4 of an acre lot. They began putting gravel on it. The EPA sent them a note and said, you are now being fined $75,000 a day. And they said, why? They said it's a wetlands. Going back to the Clean Water Act. So we took something that was well-intentioned to stop chemical companies from dumping chemicals in the water, and we are now using it to abuse a middle-class family that just puts some gravel on a lot that never has any water on it. They then had the audacity to tell them, you have no recourse in court. So they fought it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, this is America, for goodness sakes. The government just can't come take your property without you getting your day in court. So really my answer to you would be, we need to do a better job saying we believe in a clean environment, that we do believe in rules, but that the balance has shifted too far, and we're now abusing property rights and abusing farmers and small property owners, and we need to shift the balance back. And that if you shift the balance of regulations too strongly, you lose jobs. And I think that's where we are now, that we have so many regulations that we're losing jobs.
Last question.
Good morning, Senator. My name is Jeffrey Muhammad, a former business student here at this, I'm from Washington, D.C. How are you, sir?
Is that the question?
Well, when I was here in the School of Business, I went to one of my teacher's office, and he said to me, you all killed Malcolm X. And I was taken back.
Say it one more time.
He said that we killed Malcolm X.
Malcolm X?
Yes. So
Who's we?